Here's the thing, no one wants to say out loud something about Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's children just doesn't sit right. And no, this isn't tabloid gossip or royal fanfiction. We're talking about legal records, birth certificates, and a growing pile of questions the palace seems a little too eager to ignore. It all begins with a tiny detail in Archie's birth certificate. In the UK, those documents are standardized full names of both parents, clear and formal. But in Archie's case, Meghan didn't follow the norm. Instead of Rachel, Meghan Markle, her legal name. The certificate listed her only as Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Sussex. That's not typical. That's not how the Queen, Diana, Kate, or even Fergie did it. But the real twist, just 11 days after Archie's birth, the record was corrected. Not updated, not amended. Corrected. As if someone inside the palace, Meghan herself realized it wasn't just odd, it was wrong. Why remove her own identity from her child's record? Why break protocol? Every royal birth before this followed tradition. This one didn't. Then there's Lilibet. And this is where things get even stranger. The media says she was born in California, but some documents suggest otherwise. Colorado. Now that might sound random, but legally, it isn't. Unlike California, Colorado's surrogacy laws are more relaxed. They allow more flexibility about who gets listed on a birth certificate if they didn't give birth. And that matters. Because when Lilibet Diana's birth certificate surfaced, it showed something odd. Prince Harry wasn't listed as Henry Charles Albert David, his real name. Said, His Royal Highness, the Duke of Sussex. Sounds royal, sure. But here in the US, titles mean nothing. At the DMV, at immigration, at a courthouse, they want your legal name. You can't claim fatherhood with a title. You need paperwork that matches your ID. So why would they file it like that? Was it an innocent mistake or something more calculated? Some think it was a legal slip-up. Others believe it was deliberate. Because here's the twist. Meghan listed her full legal name on Lilibet's certificate, even though she removed it from Archie's. That inconsistency, mother missing from one, father misidentified on the other, it feels strategic, and now the whispers are growing louder. What if Meghan didn't give birth to Lilibet at all? Sources point to a 23-year-old woman in Colorado. She hasn't been named publicly, but insiders say she gave birth in early June 2021. The dates, the location, the paperwork hits, all lining up just a little too perfectly. And maybe, just maybe, this wasn't a coincidence at all. Just days before Lilibet's official birth date, a young woman reportedly signed strict NDAs and then vanished from public view. What makes this even more curious is that Colorado's legal system makes it incredibly easy to assign full parental new rights to the intended parents directly without ever naming the surrogate. Unlike California, where the surrogate's name typically appears on the initial birth documents, Colorado law leans heavily toward anonymity. And that might explain why the name missing from the record could matter just as much as the ones that are there. Then there's Meghan's own story. One she shared on her podcast, claiming to have suffered from postpartum preeclampsia, one of the most serious and life-threatening complications a mother can face. She described it as deadly. A condition like that would normally require bed rest, close medical supervision, and possibly weeks of hospitalization. But oddly, around the time Lilibet was reportedly born, Meghan was spotted out and about smiling, standing tall, showing no signs of recovery or protective care. And Harry, who was photographed just weeks later playing polo in Aspen, Colorado, swinging mallets, posing for selfies, laughing with friends. Would a husband whose wife nearly died during childbirth really be living carefree, half a continent away? The optics don't match the story. Then comes the certificate. What surfaced publicly wasn't a full, certified U.S. birth certificate. It was a certificate of live birth, a hospital-issued document confirming that a baby was Teleska. A baby was born alive. It's real, but it's not the final record. The official birth certificate comes later from the state. So why has no full California certificate ever been made public? Why did the media only receive the preliminary one? Was it never released? Or was it never created under the terms we were led to believe? And what about Harry's name? Legal name, Henry Charles Albert David, isn't listed. And only his royal title appears. Then, in the eyes of U.S. law, he could be viewed as a legal stranger to Lilibet. No rights, no custody, no legal say in an emergency. It's just a title. And titles, they mean nothing in an American courtroom. If this was all just a clerical error, why hasn't it been corrected in all these years? One simple amendment filing would have fixed it, but nothing has changed. It's almost like they don't want it corrected. And then there's Archie's record. Meghan's sudden removal of her full legal name from his UK birth certificate now looks even more suspicious in hindsight. Could it have been a calculated decision to distance herself from formal parental claims in potential future disputes? Most mothers include their maiden name for clarity and legal standing. Meghan erased hers, leaving only a royal title. When questioned, she said it was the palace's decision. That's true? Why would the palace want her name off the birth record of her firstborn child? These aren't minor details. These are official legal documents, the kind that define parental rights, succession, inheritance, and legitimacy. And every unanswered question just leads to more. Yet with both children, the documentation seems oddly arranged, as if it was intentionally made legally ambiguous. Almost like each parent only has a partial claim to one child, but not the other. What kind of family dynamic does that? Unless there's something being hidden, something far deeper than a typo or a misused title. Then comes the twist, the one that sends everything spiraling. According to someone close to the situation, Prince Harry might not just be legally distanced from Lilibet. There's speculation that he may not be her biological father at all. At first glance, it sounds like a wild conspiracy. But line up the facts, and it suddenly feels less impossible. It begins with an old rumor that Harry, as a child, suffered a hernia complication involving one of his testicles. The palace never confirmed it, of course. But the whispers have lingered for decades. And if that condition impacted his fertility, it would explain a lot, like why surrogacy may have been the only option, why Meghan may have turned to donors, not just for assistance, but for genetics. And here's where it gets legally critical. In the US, parental rights hinge on either biology or legally documented intent. If Harry didn't contribute DNA and his legal name isn't on the birth certificate, he loses both pillars. Meghan, meanwhile, secured her role using her full legal identity on Lilibet's paperwork. If they ever divorced, Harry wouldn't just lose custody. He might have no legal claim at all. He could be erased from his daughter's life, with a single form. And some believe that may have been the plan. Observers have noticed something else. Meghan appears more emotionally attached to Lilibet than to Archie. The theory. Biology. If Lilibet was conceived with Meghan's egg and a donor, she's still her biological child. If Archie wasn't, that difference could explain a colder distance. It sounds harsh, but even in interviews, appearances, and PR photos, the contrast is there in tone, in touch, in presence. Then there's the timeline. Meghan claimed a miscarriage in July 2020, not long after. She was spotted visiting a so-called dental clinic in Beverly Hills. But that clinic also happens to specialize in elite fertility services. And the pouch she carried, it resembled the type used for cold packs, the kind patients use after egg retrieval. It didn't feel random, it felt prepared. Even her demeanor after such a painful event seemed oddly calm, almost staged. And speaking of staged, remember that birth video Meghan promoted? It raised eyebrows too. There were no signs of pandemic protocols. No masks, no restrictions. Just perfect lighting and a spotless hospital suite. Like something out of a Maternity magazine shoot. Except that hospital had strict rules at the time. No visitors, limited contact. So how was Meghan, a global celebrity, exempt from those rules? Every layer of this story seems carefully placed. And the deeper you look, the more everything connects. The legal inconsistencies, the medical oddities, the perfectly timed press appearances. It doesn't feel like coincidence, it feels like curation. It's a controlled narrative that shifts and morphs just fast enough to stay ahead of the questions. But at some point, the questions catch up. And when they do, when the truth finally surfaces, it won't just be about a family or a palace. Because when your children are in line to the throne, your secrets become everyone's business.